Hey guys, I'm back again. I have for you today my wrap up of the month of March and April, and it just seems like it's been a really long time. Yeah, my writing course is coming to an end, so I have this week is the 6th week, and then after that I have 2 more weeks left where I'm left to write the last assignment, which is a 3,000 word assignment. So now let's get started with this wrap up. I wouldn't say I've done masses of reading because really, I mean, you know, my goal is the page count more than anything. And I think my page count is 1,957 words for the month. It's not really a lot. It's because most of the things I've been reading have been either short stories or fairly short-ish books, because I just, you know, I can't be writing, you know, 1,000, 2,000 words a day, working, 25 hours a week teaching, plus all the preparation and doing videos and doing all the rest of that. It's just not possible. So something's got to give. So let's get started with what I've got for the moment. We're going to start with all of the ebooks, because most of the books I read these past 2 months have been ebooks. So first we're going to start with Holler and Water Street. Now, Holler was, I think it's a not even 20 pages, maybe 10-page short story written by Crystal Wilkinson, who is an African-American writer from Kentucky. And I thought it was a very good short story. I kind of wish I would have had just a bit more backstory on it, but I did enjoy reading it, and it made me even more curious to read more of her stuff. I think I gave that 4 stars, and I then went and picked up Water Street, and Water Street is my big 5-star rating of the month because it was fantastic. Now, Water Street is basically a group of short stories where each short story focuses on one particular character. Now, the thing that makes it interesting is that these characters combine. So every story somehow combines with another story that you've read previously. And you basically get a little story or observation of this little corner of this city in Kentucky and around this neighborhood which Water Street runs through. It's very interesting. It's got everything going for it. It's got character. The writing is vivid. You will get a sense of who these characters are, and you will either start to care about them, even though you know they may or may not show up anymore. It's just damn interesting, especially for a short story collection, because, you know, I'm not a fan of short story collections, but that one, I would say, if you're interested in something that's a little different, but that, you know, short story collection, read it. It's really, really good. Okay, next, I read The Telltale Heart, and that was actually a reread, and The Fall of the House of Usher, which was also a reread, because I read these back in the day when I was at school. Edgar Allan Poe. Now, I remember really loving Edgar Allan Poe, but of course, it was really weird, because, you know, when you reread something years later, you just have a different take on it. But The Telltale Heart, I still love that story. I just think it's brilliantly written. The whole idea, it's just Edgar Allan Poe at his best. The Fall of the House of Usher, a little less for me. I found that one to be just a bit too descriptive for my taste. And I love books that are descriptive, stories that are descriptive, but that just was over the top for me. I don't know. I just couldn't get into that so much. So I gave them both, I think, 3 stars though. Then I had to read The Middle Toe of the Right Foot by Ambrose Bierce, which is also another Gothic writer. And this story was pretty cool too. It was very interesting and had a little spooky side to it and a little, you know, gimmick at the end kind of thing. And we had to read this as well for my writing course. All 3 of these short stories for my writing course. And yeah, it's been a while since I've read Ambrose Bierce, and I can't even remember the name of the story we read in high school. It's the one where I think it's either Confederate, no, I think it's a Union soldier is being he's being killed for, committing some kind of crime or something, and it's on a bridge. I can't remember the name of it, but that is really good. And if you haven't seen the movie for that one, that movie is really good too. It's freaking scary and spooky the way it's filmed, but it's really good. So yeah, so we read that one. Then I had to read also for my creative writing course, I had to read The Yellow Wallpaper. Now, I've heard a lot of people talking about The Yellow Wallpaper. I think it was last year people seemed to be talking about that short story. I never got around to reading it. So I read it for this course because we were talking about description and setting and making things come alive. And I just enjoyed the heck out of that story. I thought it was really, really good. And I like the way that it builds up to this, ending that it has. And I just love the descriptions and the monologue and making the monologue feel real. The Yellow Wallpaper is a very good example of that. So if you haven't read The Yellow Wallpaper, it's by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Go pick it up. It's very good. I think I gave that 4 stars though. I think, yeah. All right. Then next on ebook, I read Love Nina by Nina Steeb. Now this was a book club selection for the month of, I think it was for the month of March, if I'm not mistaken, or April. The month of March. It was the month of March. And no ma'am. That book, I gave it a 1 star. Now, I'll tell you sort of the idea about the book. It's basically told in epistolary form. So if you don't like that kind of, idea for a story, then just skip it because it's epistolary. And the problem with this is now I usually love epistolary novels, but this one in particular was very strange because Nina is the main character and she is an au pair for a family in London. And the family, I think the wife works with famous people. So she's meant to take care of this woman's 2 sons. The problem is she writes her letters to her sister. So all the letters are written to her sister, but there are no responses from her sister. So that is really odd. So you then start to wonder, then what's the point of this being an epistolary novel? If she's just going to tell us what she sees and what she hears, what's the point of making an epistolary novel where there's letters only going one way and they're not coming back the other way? So I don't know. I didn't quite understand that, and it sort of annoyed me. And another thing that annoyed me was that the first 2.5 pages of the book are a list of all of the people that she talks about in the letters with an abbreviation next to their name. If you're reading on ebook, that does not work. There was no way I was flipping back and forth like that just to, get, who is BP, this kind of thing. No. And it was very childishly written, and it was very, very, very light. I mean, it was like worse than fluff. It was just uninteresting fluff. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend that book, for anybody. And it's very centered over UK culture. So a lot of the famous people that are mentioned, if you don't know enough about the UK culture, there are people that are mentioned and you won't know who they are. All right, so we skip that one, go to the next one. Was The Happiness of Blonde People, a personal meditation on the dangers of identity by Elif Shafak. Okay, now, Elif Shafak, I read a book by her. It's called The Bastard of Istanbul. I read this with my book club about 4 or 5 years ago. So I decided to read, since I had it on my ebook, and it was very short. I think it's just like maybe 20 something pages. This book, The Happiness of Blonde People, and it's very, very, very interesting. And if you're interested in all of the, discussion that's going on at the moment around Muslim people and how much difficulty they're having and it's terrible. And Elif Shafak does a very good job of analyzing this whole problem and how it could be remedied and how it could be dealt with in a different way, politically as well as in society amongst everyday people. And it's just really, really edifying. It's very well written. It's easy to understand, and she just brings up some fantastic points. So if you're interested in that subject, I suggest you pick it up, The Happiness of Blonde People. Very good. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read The Girl on the Train, which I did a review for that, which I will link it below. And that is by Paula Hawkins. This is a new release of 2015. It was slotted, or has been slotted, as being the next Gone Girl. I don't really know because I didn't read Gone Girl. So I read it. I thought it was a little bit too predictable, not enough mystery for me personally. I was lucky enough to have listened to this on audiobook, so that gave me a different perspective on the novel. It was extremely well read on audiobook. So me personally, I would suggest that you read it on audiobook if you're desperate to read it, but I would not suggest that you pick it up because you might find it a little disappointing, a little bit too predictable, and at times, you know, it kind of drags out a little bit in some moments, but that's just my opinion. But I gave it 3 stars, mostly because I enjoyed listening to it on audiobook. Then the last audiobook I picked up was You, Me, and a Bit of We, which is a compilation of short stories that are told as told in the voice of you. And I have to tell you, this book made me not like the idea of writing, you know, in the voice of you for very long passages. Now, this is one that was a recommended reading, so we didn't have to read it, but it was recommended, and I picked it up on ebook. And I just, you know, it took me forever to read this book, and it was mostly because I found some of the stories not that interesting. Some of them were. There were a few that were interesting, and the ones that I think were the most interesting were the ones that went towards the fantasy. You know, there was even one about zombies. It was kind of interesting in the you point of view. But in general, it put me off of already I wasn't such a fan of the you voice in the beginning. But after reading the book, I was thoroughly put off of it. I think the you point of view has to be used for specific reasons while writing a book, like because there's something in particular that we want to drag the reader into the story in a different way for a particular reason. But I can't see writing an entire book in the you point of view. I think that would be hard going for the writer and even worse for the reader, but that's just my opinion. So those were all of the ebooks I read, which was quite a lot of ebooks. So next I'm going to go to all of the paper books I read, which were, first of all, Reading Like a Writer. This one I read practically over the 2 months, and I did enjoy some aspects of the book, but I wouldn't say this was a really good book or anything. I gave it 3 stars. I think it has, you know, some very good and efficient points to it, but I still have a problem with, you know, the fact that she bases a lot of things on, you know, the typical canon writers, and she doesn't bring in hardly any African American writers, or, you know, that kind of thing, or even that many Asian writers. I mean, it's always the typical canon that we're used to you hearing people talk about, and so that's what's a little disappointing. But yeah, you can get some pointers on here, you know, through this book, Reading Like a Writer. But, you know, I gave it 3 stars. It's good, but I wouldn't say it's great. Then I read A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid, and I also did a review for this book. I will link it below. And you know, I love me some Jamaica Kincaid. This is a book that she wrote. I can't remember exactly when this was written. It was written in 1988. And she basically discusses all that is going wrong on the island of Antigua, which is where she is originally from. Although Jamaica Kincaid no longer lives in Antigua, she lives in the United States. And it sounds like a rant for some people, but you know what? You know, like I said in my review, I think if I was in her position, I would be ranting too. There's some bad stuff. She's got some really bad stuff in here, but it's an interesting book. It's very small, but it is very informative. Then I picked up This Year You Write Your Novel by Walter Mosley. I showed you this book, I think, maybe once or twice. I read this book before my course started, and I really love this book, and I go back to it regularly to pick up pointers to help me with my writing. And yeah, I'm really digging Walter Mosley, and I'm very anxious to get to some of his works, because I have not read anything by Walter Mosley except for this one. But if you're interested in writing a novel in a year, now this doesn't mean your novel will be ready to be published, but it'll at least get you something solidly written down on paper that you can then go back and edit regularly and, you know, improve to become the novel that you want to be published. So check that out. Then I read The Light Between Oceans, and this is by M.L. Stedman. I don't really have that much to say about this book. It's been reviewed to death on BookTube, so you pretty much know what it's about. If you know, I'll just give you a quickie about it. It's a couple, they live in a lighthouse. The husband is a lighthouse keeper, and they have no children. One day a boat floats to the lighthouse. Inside of the boat is a dead man and a crying baby. This couple has been trying to have a baby, but they've had a series of, you know, the wife's been having a series of miscarriages, which then when they see the baby, the first thing the woman does is hold the baby, and she doesn't want to let this baby go. So they wind up keeping the baby, and then the story begins. So yeah, the thing about this book, the thing it has going for it is its beautiful writing. Her writing is very, very beautiful. Storyline, meh, a lot less. I think I gave this 2 stars. It's really okay, but I mean, I wouldn't, you know, say run out and go read it. Last but not least, I have Cora, which I finally finished reading. It's a short book, but I really read this in 2 to 3 sittings, but over a long period of time, because I had to stop because of all the activities I have going at the moment. This is an intense little book, but I will be putting up a review of Cora in the next few days so that you can know exactly what I think about this, because I really feel like Gail Jones needs some press on BookTube. So I'm going to be doing a thorough review of Cora, and I'll probably go up this weekend because a lot going on. But this weekend you should see a review of this. If not before. I have to see if I can actually, you know, I started writing a review for it, but I haven't put it up on my blog yet. So, you know, we'll see if I can get my thoughts together. You'll get a review of this, yeah, probably this weekend. So that is all that I have read in this past 2 months. So my page count is currently at, I think it's 5,456 pages, just about, roughly. I'm not too happy with that count, but you know why the count isn't so big. But I hope to be reading more this month. I have a buddy read this month with Keisha Forsaken, and we will be reading Room by Emma Donoghue. If you want to join in with Room, please do. I'll probably try to come on here with a midway update of how my reading is going with that one. I don't know what else I'm going to be reading. I'm probably going to pick up this one, which, you know, God Help the Child. It's my beautiful edition of the new Toni Morrison, and God only knows what else. We will see, and I will let you know. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you're all doing well, that the weather is good. Here it's sunny, but still a little bit frisky and windy. But yeah, I'm not going to complain. The sun is shining. Okay, I will talk to you really soon. Bye.